Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome back to Edessa Season 2. In this particular scene, Kadir has chosen to speak with Lady Hebony to give a report about his findings involving the disappearance of the gang girl, and wishing to bring that forth to the Council of Elders within the Asamites due to the unfortunate and basically disturbing and frightening information that he has gathered. He's hoping that with this information and with the elders that we could sway the court of Edessa to take action against the particular assailants, but in a way that does not cause an intense disruption within the city, which may be an absolute folly at this point, but he is willing to try. He has taken the time to meet at Hebony's home and waits outside the door for her to answer.
Absolutely. She comes quickly to let him in, smiling and touching his shoulder gently before she closes the door behind him.
That's it. So he bows his head and respect and acknowledgement and says, "I hope the evening does you well."
It does indeed. And how about you?
Another night, another incident we must talk about.
Well, please come in and sit down. I'm eager to hear what you have to say, though it sounds serious.
It's of possible city importance.
Oh dear. Yes, please sit. And so she will usher him into basically a sitting room. The house has been cleared out so that there are no witnesses. And make sure that he's comfortable.
When he sits, he uh, removes or moves around his I guess this be yeah, it would be his sash from his person for a moment to instead of resting on it typically on his shoulder.
Hmm.
And he states that this could, if no action is done by the court, could be a clan incident between the Gangrel, the Ravnos, and the Tremere.
That sounds like a very twisted web. What have you heard?
It's not heard, it's what I know now. With an investigation with members of King Gangrel, Dristan, and Miriam, I was able to confirm through a particular spell that the Ravnos and the Tremere have been working together. More specifically, the Ravnos, even before the Tremere's particular influence, has been gathering Gangrel and selling them off.
Gathering gangrel and selling them.
More specifically to the Tremere for their experiments. I do not know the specific elder, but I do know an elder was involved.
An elder Tremere or an elder Ravnos?
An elder Tremere is what I'm focusing on. I cannot confirm if it was an elder or an ancilla with the Ravnos heading this particular operation.
And the gang will know now.
The Gangrel are rather upset now. As we were discussing this information, they wish for quick retaliation, as I suggested, instead that we bring this up to the court. Though they do not seem to be in a position to be willing to go to court for understandable reasons.
Understandable. How do you mean?
Though the Ravnos may not have the strongest power within the court that Tremere do, and in no doubt that there are other clans that might be aware and chose to look away with this particular incident. And they may block the Gangrel for their rightful justice.
I see. And so the gangrel have decided to handle it on their own.
They are willing to do it. They have not made their move.
I see. And what do you think?
I think for the stability of the city, I would rather go to court first, and hopefully get an appeal to bring some type of retaliation between the Tremere and the Ravnos. This is absolutely breaking a code of ethics and morale, code of ethics within the city. We have our conflicts, we have our wars, but to straight up go around and capturing specifically a clan member to bring forth your personal either vengeance or gain is unacceptable.
Yes, it certainly flies in the face of all morality. It may be hard to convince certain members of the court that, but not all of them. We are not an entirely godless people.
It doesn't change the fact that it's just not good manners. If we were going to go out to war with the Setites for simply murdering one of our own and not enslaving us to be murdered, to be experimented, or worse, I do believe they have the right to complain.
Oh, the right to complain is guaranteed. The question will be if they intend murder, whether they have the right to life.
Uh,
I
we
have
have
a
proof of.
suggestion to offer you if you have been in contact with the gangrel throughout this particular investigation.
I have. I have made sure that they have been in constant contact since my investigation.
If they do not suspect that the court will act quickly enough to protect them, if they think that they do not have the support of the court enough to put an end to this quickly through legal matters, through legal methods, perhaps you can offer to approach the court to at least grant them the right of the kill for any that they can confirm have been so enslaving.
And
You would, of course, have to have some sort of proof, I suspect.
yes, so we were able to find the previous black marketplace underground, and I was able to obtain visions of their previous actions. Though they may be aware of our presence, and if not, they may be already moved on simple practicality reasons. So the place may not reside there anymore if we were to check it again, but I will still use it into my investigation.
I see. I understand that you have the ear of the sheriff.
The sheriff takes note of me, and he listens to me when it's convenient to him. I do not have his ear.
A reasonable clarification. I apologize.
Yes, it is all right.
The Tremere and the Ventrue are very close in Edessa,
That
but I
they
do not
are.
know the relationship of the Ventrue and the Ravnos at large. I suspect that the primogen of the Ravnos probably has nothing to do with such things.
No, it's Scourge specifically, amongst others.
That will be complicated.
That's why the gang will want to seek retaliation. It would be very difficult if the city Scourge has been known for specifically, what's it, enslaving Canaanites. Mortals, that happens every day. It's a normal occurrence. But our kind, that is very different.
Particularly if it is so targeted against a particular clan.
Indeed.
It could very much be seen as, well,
It is an act of aggression.
And yet, I see. What do you think? Do you wish to go to the prince?
I'd like to have a bit more evidence to confirm these things, so others would not see my visions and speculations to be again another slight against the Tremere for previous reasons, because they are still involved.
Yes, I think that's very wise. You do well to be cautious.
Yes. The problem is how to not necessarily indict the Tremere and what they did, but indict the Ravnos more specifically.
How do you mean?
If I show merely the proof that I've already obtained with the Tremere, there is a potential idea that maybe I falsify such documents. More specifically with the Tremere, because I have more reason to. Our relationship with the Ravnos is relatively neutral, and that would seem to be if I would say through a common eye, an unnecessary amount of effort to try to indict them as well. Why have the wrath of two clans instead of just one?
I'll remind you that if the Primogen is not involved, cannot necessarily be called the act of an entire clan. Legally, that is important, because you may be able to, in fact, engage the Primogen as an ally.
That is a risky venture.
Would you say it is more risky than condemning the clan as a whole?
I am concerned as much as the Gangrel are of being sent to being routed with this. That's what I'm worried about.
Sorry, what did he say?
He says, "I'm like the Gangrel. I'm concerned about being routed with our goals." So he's concerned about that.
Mm-hmm.
But he will say that he does agree that we shouldn't make a generalized look against the clan. From what I saw, a few weeks ago in court, most of them seem to be disconnected to each other and just do their own thing.
She nods. And if you can present it to those who are not involved, as though they might be painted with the same brush, you might find support from those who are not involved, even against their own clanmates. But for that, you will need evidence. You must have a strong enough argument to reasonably expect that the court will act.
Yes.
Good luck. It sounds like tricky business.
It always
But if you're
is.
successful, you will earn the goodwill of the gangrel and help to uphold our clan's reputation as lawbringers.
If not that, we'll have the reputation of being unnecessarily nosy.
Alcadir, I suspect that you will not be able to escape that reputation.
As my as my sire said to me, said, "You have nothing to be guilty about if you go looking around, if you've done nothing wrong." But of course, the typical response is the evasion of privacy.
No one likes to think that anyone knows what they're doing. And yet the Nosferatu remain in the city.
Many underestimate the Nosferatu merely on the appearance, which I would think, as a whole of our society, we should know better.
We should. About many, many things, I think. And yet we do not.
Indeed.
Hence, Clan Asimite has been called from our studies, our prayers, and our contemplations. And here we are.
But beyond that, I have nothing else to report.
She nods. If I can be of assistance, let me know. I'd be happy to assist you with speaking to members of Clan Ventru.
And he nods to that. For a situation like this, any who has any power that can tip the scales would be much needed.
I don't know about power, but politics are my game.
Even that's not a power in itself.
We shall see if you still think so after I've tried my hand at convincing the Ventru to scold the Tremere.
The Tremere, as we know it, are way past scolding, but it is what it is. Well, and he will begin to stand and state that I have a meeting, or at least hopefully I'll have a meeting with Lady Hiwant of the Toreador tonight. I'm wondering if she noticed anything different in these past ages in the city with the Bravnos as a whole. No one really speaks to them, but the Toreador, I'm sure, speak with everyone.
She has not been in the city long. She may not have anything to compare it to, but it is not a poor choice to speak to her. She is good company. May have something interesting to tell you.
It's my only branch with them, so I'll use what I can.
She nods.
Hmm.
Go in peace, Alcadir. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Hmm. And as he stands, a small little rat head will come out of one of the pouches in his bag and kind of wave away with one of its tiny paws. They go back into the bag.
Ebony's smile kind of freezes, but it stays there. She doesn't get rid of it. She just gives Alcadir a kind of sideways look.
He doesn't always like staying in the bag.
Well, I hope that he also goes in peace.
And you hear a small, like little squeak in acknowledgement of your statement. And Kadir will begin to leave Ebony's home and begin walking over to Lady Watt's place.
She, assuming that he has let her know that he's coming, there
Yeah.
is a ghoul that he is familiar with, waiting outside to usher him into another well-appointed sitting room. This one very different, beautifully tiled, and he's, I think, spent some time here before.
I believe so.
And she is waiting, with a small paintbrush and a stretched hide, making very thoughtful marks on it.
Uh,
But
so
she
he will not.
rises when he comes in. Sorry.
No, he's just gonna say he won't disturb her painting until she acknowledges him.
No, yeah, she absolutely hurries to her feet, and offers her hands, smiling. Welcome.
So thank you a lot. I'm glad you're able to meet with me tonight.
It is my pleasure. It's been too long. How have you been? Please, have a seat.
He sits down and he says, "It's like I've been doing well for myself for the past nights." And I'm hoping your ventures have been going well as well.
Quite. Quite well.
Good.
Can I get you anything to make yourself more comfortable?
He thinks for a moment, and then he kind of gets lost in his mind for a moment, and then he will state, "This may be an odd request, but do you have any bread and oil with you?"
She eyes him, one eyebrow raises, and then she grins because the last couple times he's asked for weird shit, he's started doing magic. So she is more than happy to oblige. She stands and brushes off her skirts and says, "Not here, of course, but give me a moment, I'll have some brought," and goes to the door. If he waits, then it doesn't take very long before a servant hurries to bring bread and oil.
And he will take it and will thank you a lot. And then again, he'll get lost in his head, and he kind of shakes his head for a moment, then he go and just simply and says again, "Thank you."
Are you alright?
No, I'm very much fine. I was like, I'm just receiving some information of a very, let's just say, picky person. So they wanted herbs, but I didn't want to ask that of you. Those can be expensive depending on what it wants. So
Someone is speaking to you,
yes,
and they've requested bread and oil
so
and
he
herbs.
he is hungry, and he says he smelt those things before and wondered what they tasted like.
Is this a new child?
Something like that.
Have you been granted the right to sire?
No, it's a bit different.
I
Something
see.
that goes around that particular rule.
I beg your pardon. Now I am very intrigued.
It's more of a specialized school.
Not a child, but a ghoul who has only smelled bread and oil.
Yes.
She squints at him, still kind of smirking, still pretty curious. I suppose if it is a secret, I shall let you keep your secrets. Of course, if it isn't a secret, you have my full attention.
I promise you it's much more mundane than you think it is.
I'm not reassured. My curiosity is still piqued.
So, and he'll just state that. I said maybe one day. Said not here though.
Which is something that when she finds out what's going on, she will absolutely appreciate, but she doesn't know that yet. So she just kind of squints at him and smiles and says, "Very well. Would you like me to have that packaged so that you can take it with you when you go?"
Yes, please.
She goes back to the door and it disappears, and you can guess that it'll reappear soon once it's been repackaged. So, besides that,
Oh, I wish to speak of you. About the Court of Stars and how that's been going for yourself. I'm assuming that I might have missed a few meetings.
a few. He knows that she sends invitations to small groups of people. Like, it's not like everybody's just invited. She sends specific invitations. I'm going to assume that there's probably been a couple meetings that he's been invited to and either missed or attended, and they were uneventful. Because she hasn't been snubbing him in any way.
Yeah.
She enjoys his company. But she just smiles and says, "Oh, sorry." She doesn't say that. She doesn't yawn. She just says, "They have been going well. Things have been quiet in the city, at least as far as gossip goes."
So the dove hasn't brought up any interesting scenarios with her fifth?
No, I suspect she took my warnings to heart. She has been discreet. Which I suspect is not easy for her.
She does seem very passionate.
Passionate, yes. Yes.
And assuming that the obsidian serpent hasn't chose to be too abrasive as he normally is, if he's shown up at all.
She gives Alcadir a kind of impish smile and says, in fact, he has been extremely gracious since his embarrassment. All of the statues that were removed from the previous Elysium before the Setites made their monstrosity have been returned to the arms of Clan Toreador. I am extremely pleased by the gift. They're in my keeping now. They're exquisite.
Well, I'm glad that the Toreador are waxing the with the proper justice that's been given to the Setites.
I'm sorry, that was probably crass of me.
Saladrin had made very aggressive and disrespectful actions several times. It was going to catch up with them eventually.
Of course. I did not mean to, in any way, give my stamp of approval to such things. But I am pleased to have the statues back. Have I offended you?
No,
Good.
our relationship has never been stable, so I am not hurt if things were if things were to befall him in a negative light.
Our relationship meaning your relationship with him, or with me.
More with him. I believe our relationship has very much been stable.
I certainly hope so. Your statues are ready.
Thank you.
Speaking of which, they're certainly strange.
I think they will. I think due to that, they'll be quite effective.
Effective?
I was
To
like,
catch the eye, you mean? You said they were decorations.
yes, for the most part.
She's kind of grinning at him because she's pretty sure that there's more to it than that, but doesn't say anything. Just kind of gives him a grin like, you can tell me. Go ahead, you can tell me.
He just simply states that they will be statues that would hopefully bring awe to people's hearts. So me and a few it's a few of my people will make sure to arrive and bring over. I said and bring this and bring the statues to my place.
She nods. And will Clan Asimite be assisting Giles in protecting the New Elysium?
If they wish us, We will.
I'm sure he would be grateful for your help. Particularly yours. You have an inventive mind. Giles likes clever people.
Yes.
Particularly when they're also gifted with discretion.
Well, not everyone is like you, Ebony. They don't. Not everyone appreciates our presence, even when we're an aid to them.
I think you'll find that Giles is very practical in that sense. It is one of the traits that makes him an excellent keeper.
So I hope he does better than Alas. That's all I can say.
She just kind of smiles. She has what she wants from the last keeper.
I wanted to ask you. Ever since I saw a member of Clan Ravnos in court a few weeks back, that I really took notice that they tend to be absent. Yeah, absent. I was curious if you knew much about them within the city.
No, I'm afraid that I don't. The gossip is occasionally lovely. Their Primogen is certainly a sight to behold, isn't she?
I feel I've only met her maybe once, or maybe only in rumors.
Well, between her and the beautiful music of Durga, I am quite fond of the Ravnos and Edessa whenever I get the chance to see them, which I confess is not often. And Lihua, her tea shop is a wonder.
He nods at that. I really have only, at best, spoken to the Scourge, and purely on more professional matters.
I'm afraid, and her voice has gone a little bit frosty. I'm afraid I've had very few dealings with the Scourge.
He'll take note of the tone, and we'll just simply state, you don't have the most stable relationship with the Scourge.
The Scourge has a peculiar sense of humor. He and I find common ground very rarely.
I hear his tongue is sharp and ire, his ire heavy.
I have also heard that, and I have no desire to draw either his tongue or his ire.
That so, I also heard that he has a strong business, but I don't remember of what.
If he does, I'm sure it has nothing to do with me. My interests lie far outside of Riverside. Others have. Not others, but you, perhaps. You and the dove have tried to convince me to take an interest in Riverside. But I'm afraid that truly it holds a little spark for me.
I've been there recently, and it seems that it's actually going through a bit of a renaissance. It seems to be recovering not only from the plague, but it seems to have a better sense of order than it used to have.
So I've heard. I'm very pleased to hear it.
Likewise, every place, even listen, every place, regardless of its past, should be a safe place for anyone to live in, or at least mostly safe.
She smiles and says, at least mostly safe. Safety can only be relative in a city full of Canaanites.
Indeed.
I've heard that there have been difficulties for many in feeding. I stick mostly to my herd, but have you had such difficulties?
No, likewise. I normally survive off of my herd.
She nods. It is always a concern when such things become difficult. It can mean poaching, it can mean overpopulation, and the consequences can be dire.
That they can. Our so we must keep our system in proper running order. Though I am curious why anyone should be short for food. With the curfew gone, it should be dramatically easier in comparison.
Well, yes, but it will not be easier if the streets are being overhunted.
Has that been the case? I haven't feel like I've seen more canines on the ground than normal.
Interesting. Then I wonder what could be causing the difficulty. People complain even about hunting in their own domains.
And he actually looks rather concerned hearing that because he hasn't heard anything of that till this moment. So he's more kind of confused and like thinking like how this even happened or why. And he's also going, I hope this is not another thing I have to start researching into.
I love him. It's fair. Oh, I love him. Well, perhaps it is just hearsay from people who have been cranky because their hunt has not gone well. You know how that can be.
I only hope so. Like I know it's not necessarily like it's always a possibility, but it would be nice to have a moment of peace within the city.
It would. One can always hope.
One can always hope.
Tell me if you hear similar rumors, will you?
And he nods at that. Like, this has my curiosity, so I will do my best to keep an eye out.
She nods. I've been very much involved with private projects, but this is one of the warning signs that I do like to keep an eye on. I've heard it a few times from neonates and people whose domains are not very secure.
Oh, have you seen Aldrich of late?
She smiles, like her face actually, like, what's the best way? Just kind of a smile breaks out. You know what I mean? Like when you ask about someone is fond about,
Hmm.
she just visibly warms. Not very recently, I'm afraid, but I hope to soon. Have you a message to take to him? I'd be more than happy.
I may need to speak with him, but I'm not sure.
I understand that the relationship between your clans is troubled. I'm more than happy to act as a go-between.
I don't think they'll be necessary, but I appreciate it.
She nods. It
But
pleases me to see peace between you.
we have, oddly enough, similar goals in mind. So,
That is unusual to hear from an Asimite describing a Toreador. But I'm pleased. He does seem a very cosmopolitan sort. I don't know that I could call you a cosmopolitan sort, but you are curious and do like to experiment. Suppose I shouldn't be surprised.
and with that, he gets sits back for a moment and begins thinking, and we'll say, and we'll just simply say that I appreciate our conversations, and, but I think I might be going unless I'm looking for no, not Ishmael. I keep forgetting his name.
Hmm.
Um, the Nosferatu that attends at the well, most arrives at the Court of Stars. He doesn't really attend these times.
Her lip like visibly curls, like fuck that guy. Her expression very much is like, I don't know why you'd want to talk to him, but yeah, get out of here. Go talk to him. But she doesn't say anything. She stays. Her voice is polite. Her words are polite. It's just for a second her expression is like gross. Um, which isn't much of a surprise. He's seen the way that they get along, which is not at all. Um, and she says, if you're looking for him, I understand that there's a street. Oh, let me find it. Figure out which part of the. 1 second. Um, I understand that there's a street in the Christian quarter that he frequents. Look for the lepers. You may find him among them.
He inclines his head, instead, in acknowledgement and gratitude, and he will stand and say, "Thank you."
She will describe the street to him and its location, kind of close to Hayat's Bazaar and the Central Market, so that he can find it better. And then she also rises to offer him her hands as he goes. It's always a pleasure to speak to you. Oh no, welcome back.
Alkadir was sad and
Oh, what you did to me?
uh, and says, "You have a good evening, Hawat."
Thank you. And you too. Peace be upon you.
Thank you. Um, as he leaves, he'll accept the bread and oil,
Mhm.
and as he walks, he will stop after a certain point and place the bread, and I'm assuming the oil is probably in a bottle,
Mhm.
and we'll coat part of the bread in the oil, and let or Alim um get out of the bag and begin enjoying the bread. Though he does say that the stuff that smells good's not on top of it. And he'll tell him that he'll get that later. Said and says you don't have to eat the whole thing at once.
Okay. Is he doing this in the street where other people can see him feeding rats? Or does
He's
he kind
doing
of
it.
step off to the side?
Yeah, he's stepping off the side. That could bring
Okay.
concern to people to feed their rats.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially after the plague.
Yeah,
Well, I'm sure the rat appreciates it.
that he does. And
Is he going to look among the lepers?
yeah, yeah. After feeding him for a little bit, yes, he will go upon the Christian quarters and walks among the lepers.
Okay. Let me set up a scene here. What'd you name it?
Oh, I did not name it anything at the moment, but I will. Yep, I will make a start for our scene.
Perfect.
Dash roller a one or two or
I think they're all free.
okay. Dash roller two.
You got me yawning. Ah.
So, already.
Okay. Go ahead and roll your perception, investigation, or alertness, whichever you prefer.
Okie dokie. I'll roll my perception and investigation.
Okay. Okay,
Uh,
you go hunting among the lepers who are crouched there. Um, they are, holding out their hands for alms. Um, they kind of call to you about, uh, what's the word I want? Take pity on me, generous sir, that
they
sort of thing.
are what I think actually the right word is they're woeing to people.
Yeah. And as you are moving among them, whether you are actually giving money or not, are you asking about him or just checking faces?
I'm I'm checking faces and I ask about him and see if they recognize the name.
Okay.
Obviously, I wouldn't say like, "Hey, did you see that one guy that doesn't ever breathe and drinks blood from rats?"
Yeah, that probably wouldn't go over well. Yeah, when you refer to him as Meshulam, the first couple of people that you ask, uh, are you giving money, by the way?
Yes, I'll drop a few silver for them.
Okay.
So
Yeah, if you're dropping money, then there's kind of murmured discussion that goes on, and you see out of the corner of your eye a kid who's sitting nearby. One of the women gets up and goes running off, and there's kind of you're kind of drawn into a murmured discussion of, oh, I think I saw him last week, oh, I think I saw him, blah blah blah, that kind of thing. They want to keep you around as long as you're giving out money, but it isn't very long before you see the kid slip back and there is a shuffling figure coming along behind him that you recognize.
and he will see Mashallah and he will incline his head to him.
He says, it is you. To what do I owe the pleasure? Come, come, let us find somewhere comfortable to sit. Private, maybe.
He nods to that.
And he will draw you down into a side street, take you away from the press of people. It doesn't smell good here, but here you are.
When he gets there, he says, "I haven't seen you around the Court of the Stars the past times I was there."
Oh no, have you missed my presence? I'm afraid I'm not often invited to the Court of Stars.
Yet you come there anyways.
Occasionally. That I do. He kind of smirks.
Hmm.
Have you missed me?
I came to communicate with you, so yes.
Very well. What is it that you wish to communicate?
And these past nights, I have been focused on my duties and other ventures of recent, and I wish to rectify my lack of attention to what started me in the city in the first place, the small folk. I am wishing to know concerns of recent so I can hopefully assist them as quickly as I can.
I remember you speaking of that you wish to assist the small folk. What is it you want out of it? Everyone likes money.
I mainly wish out of it stability. That's it. Said, if the common folk are well, the city will be well.
An interesting and uncommon philosophy. Usually it is said if the king is well, then the city will be well.
If the king
Common
is
folk are
well,
disposable.
if the king is well, that means the city's interests are well, not the city itself.
I should have guessed an Assamite would be a philosopher.
most people think we're just murderers, but we're more than that.
I'm well aware. So, if I find that there's trouble among the small folk, I should come to you.
I would appreciate to know.
I could be troubled to do so.
I would hate to interrupt your busy schedule.
You sound like there might be sarcasm in your voice, Alcaudier. Was that sarcasm that I just heard?
Well, that depends on your definition of it. Since your skin is intact, I would say no.
Have you been known to flay people with your tongue?
And he thinks about that, and he does think of the few moments that he has flayed people, and he goes, no.
He's gonna kind of lean forward and grin and say, "For a moment I mistook you for a Sethite. I thought that was their particular talent."
Well, there's no way, but he side-eyes him at that kind of comment.
He doesn't look particularly repentant. Well, I do have a busy schedule, but I'm willing to make time in it for you.
I hope that I earned it.
Not yet, but I have every confidence that you shall. Are you not friends with La Sombra? I have expected to find you rooting about in our tunnels.
I am friends with Memnon, but Sombra as a whole, I would say not.
It was Memnon that I approached. You must ask him why you were not invited.
So me and Memnon are personal friends. I am not a friend of the clan.
I see. He has a great many friends, it seems to me. Very magnanimous fellow.
He also does the finest work within Edessa, so I expect him to make as many friends as people need tools.
That is quite a claim. The finest work within Edessa. Are you sure there are no Toreador you're going to anger with that sort of remark?
When I see a Toreador weaponsmith, I'll make sure to change my mind.
To my knowledge, the only swords that the Toreador are good at forging are between people's legs. At least in Edessa.
He kind of just was quiet at that comment.
He grins and says, "Too crass?" Ah, you are a man of a gentle disposition. I forgot.
That's one of their particular vices that I try not to think about. And
Forgive me then.
Also, since I know that you keep an eye on what you can find, I do have a question for you.
Ask.
Have you noticed any movement with the Ravnos? That seems different than usual.
With the Ravnos. Different since when?
I would say different since any time.
Changes in the Ravnos. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Well, the Ravnos are either as pretty as the Toreador or very, very sharp. I keep my distance. except for the lyre player.
And he nod to that, and he'll say it seems that many of us seem to avoid or straight up ignore the Ravnos.
I assure you I did not ignore them. But the one most often in the city is a dangerous man.
And
And I am
he's
not a dangerous man.
and he nods at that. Uh, so- Well, I do hope that we'll be able to meet again soon, and hopefully do some good within the city. I thank you for your time.
A pleasure, I'm sure. Good fortune to you in all your hunting.
Likewise.
Thank you.
And he will place down a few silver between them before he leaves.
His brows raise, and you hear him chanting one of the common prayers of thanks that are tend to be the sorts of blessings that are given to pilgrims or generous people by the lepers, the poor.
And with that, thank you, players, for playing. Thank you, watchers, for watching. Have a good morning, evening, or afternoon.